The prairie dusk bled copper and violet across the endless sky, but for Daniel Rourke there was no peace in the hour. His horse lathered with sweat, hooves tearing through brittle grass. A storm brewed not in the clouds but in the trail behind him, the echoes of pursuit. Gunfire cracked far off. He leaned forward, spurring harder. He wasn't fleeing for himself. He was chasing sound, screams carried faint on the wind. The canyon cut was narrow, littered with brush and stone. Daniel swung down, rifle in hand, heart hammering as he slipped into the shadows. There, amid the rocks, he found them. A woman crumpled against the dirt, her shawl torn, her breath ragged, and 3 small girls huddled at her skirts. Their eyes, black pools of terror, fixed on him. The eldest clutched a stick like a blade, trembling but ready to strike. Daniel raised a hand. "Easy," he whispered. "I ain't here to harm you." Behind them, a man bellowed curses in Spanish and English both, voice soaked in whiskey and cruelty. The sound grew nearer. Daniel stepped forward, placing his body between the family and the trail. The woman's lips parted, cracked and bleeding. "Please," she breathed, her accent rich but breaking. Do not let him beat us again." Her words cut him deeper than any bullet. The first rider broke the line of brush. Daniel didn't hesitate. His rifle barked, the echo snapping across the canyon walls. The outlaw toppled from the saddle, dust and blood rising as one. 2 more men reined up, startled. Daniel fired again and again, until the night swallowed the thunder and the riders fled with curses trailing after them. Silence reclaimed the canyon. The children clung to their mother's skirts, sobbing. Daniel lowered the rifle, chest heaving. He had seen death before, but never with 3 small faces pressed so close to it. "Come on," he said softly. He knelt, offering his rough, calloused hand. The eldest girl, perhaps 9 years old, looked at him long and hard before taking it. Her small fingers were cold. He lifted her gently, then helped the others. Last, the woman herself. She winced, favoring her ribs, but when she rose her chin lifted with a quiet dignity that startled him. "Name's Daniel," he murmured. She swallowed, eyes shimmering in the dim light. "Maria." Her voice trembled, yet there was steel beneath it. "These are my daughters." He tipped his hat. "Let's get you to shelter." They rode in silence through the dying light, the girls huddled on the saddle before their mother while Daniel led them toward his ranch tucked in the foothills. The land opened wide, rolling fields of buffalo grass turned silver under a rising moon. Coyotes howled, distant and lonely. By the time they reached his cabin, the night had deepened and cold seeped through the wood. Daniel swung down, lifted the girls carefully and guided them inside. The cabin was spare, rough-hewn table, stone hearth, a bunk against one wall, but warm with the smell of wood smoke and leather. The children moved timidly as though afraid even the walls might strike them. Maria hesitated at the door, her shawl clutched tight around her bruised arms. Daniel busied himself with the fire, laying fresh logs until the room glowed amber. He set a kettle on the hook and rummaged for bread, jerky, a jar of beans. He said little, only letting the rhythm of his work speak. When he set the food on the table, the girls did not move. They stared at the bread as if it might vanish. "Go on," he said gently. Still they hesitated. Finally Maria lowered her shawl and gave a faint nod. Only then did the children scramble forward, devouring the bread with shaking hands. Daniel turned away, giving them dignity in their hunger. Maria did not eat. She sat stiff, watching her daughters, her dark eyes never leaving them. "You need food too," Daniel said quietly. Her gaze flicked to him. "I will wait." "You'll take it," he answered. His tone left no room for argument. He slid a piece of bread across the table toward her. Slowly, with fingers trembling, she took it. For the first time, Daniel let himself look at her closely. She was not young, not old, perhaps late 20s. Her face bore the wear of hardship, sun-browned skin, a thin scar along her jaw, bruises yellowing at her temple. Yet even through the exhaustion and pain, a quiet strength clung to her. The children ate until their bellies swelled. Then at last they drifted to sleep on the rug near the fire, their small bodies curled together like pups. Only then did Maria whisper, "Gracias." Daniel inclined his head, saying nothing more. The days that followed moved like shifting light. The storm had passed, but shadows lingered. Maria kept mostly silent, her words soft and sparse. She moved about the cabin quietly, mending torn shirts, sweeping, boiling beans with what little he had. Always with her daughters close, always with a watchful eye as though expecting cruelty at any moment. Daniel gave her space. He rose before dawn, tending cattle, hauling water, chopping wood. He never asked her to help, yet often returned to find chores half done by her gentle hands. She sewed patches in his coat without a word, left cornbread cooling on the table, wiped mud from his boots. It was not gratitude, it was survival. He saw it in her eyes, the learned instinct to appease to lessen the chance of wrath. One evening, as wind rattled the shutters, he found the youngest girl, perhaps 3 years old, clutching a wooden horse he had carved years before. She held it tight, eyes wide. "Do you like it?" he asked softly. She nodded, whispering, "Please don't beat us." Daniel froze. He crouched, his voice low. "No one's ever gonna hurt you here." Her eyes searched his face, uncertain. Then she nodded again, slipping the toy under her blanket as if afraid it might be taken. The words gnawed at him. Please don't beat us. They had lived in a world where even kindness was a threat. Maria's story came not in confession but in fragments. A scar revealed when her sleeve slipped. A whisper in her sleep. A trembling hand when a rider passed near the cabin. Her husband had been a cruel man, drunk with power and whiskey. He beat her for silence, for defiance, for nothing at all. The land they worked was not hers to claim, and when he fell into debt, men came to collect. She and her girls became payment. They fled. But the man, her husband's brother, pursued them, vowing to drag them back. That was the man Daniel had faced in the canyon. Yet others remained. The warning came from town. A rider brought word that men had been asking after a Mexican woman with 3 girls. They'd sworn vengeance, and they knew where Daniel lived. Daniel listened in silence, jaw tight. When the rider left, he began preparing. He checked his rifle, cut fresh cartridges, split more wood, stored water. Maria watched, silent but pale. "They'll come," Daniel said. "Best we're ready." Her lips trembled. "You should not risk your life for us." He looked at her, steady and certain. "You're under my roof. That's reason enough." She said no more, but her eyes shone wet in the firelight. The night came heavy with storm. Clouds smothered the moon and rain swept across the plains. The cabin groaned under wind. The children slept fitfully, curled near the hearth. Maria sat awake, shawl tight, her gaze flicking to the door with every gust. Daniel sat at the table, rifle across his knees. His heartbeat was calm, steady. Yet beneath it pulsed a strange warmth he had not felt in years, the knowledge that what he guarded mattered more than himself. Hoofbeats came first. Distant, muffled by storm. Then closer, sharper. Voices shouting over wind. Maria flinched, clutching her shawl. The children stirred, whimpering. Daniel rose, moved to the door and stepped into the storm. Rain lashed his face, lightning splitting the horizon. 3 riders approached through the dark, guns glinting in brief flashes. "Rourke," one bellowed. "Hand her over." Daniel leveled his rifle. "Not tonight." They laughed, spreading wide, circling. One fired a shot wild, splintering the porch rail. Daniel answered with fire of his own. One rider tumbled into mud, horse screaming. Chaos broke loose. Lightning, thunder, gunfire all tangled together. Daniel fought steady, each shot deliberate, each breath calm. Yet they pressed hard, forcing him back toward the door. Inside, Maria clutched her daughters, whispering prayers. Then, when one outlaw broke through the storm, charging straight for the cabin, she rose. Her hand seized the iron kettle from the fire. When the man burst through the door, she hurled boiling water across his face. His scream split the night as he stumbled back, blinded. Daniel seized the moment. He fired once, twice. Silence fell but for the rain. The last rider fled into the storm, cursing, vanishing into darkness. For a long moment only the rain spoke. Then Maria sank to her knees, trembling. The girls clung to her, sobbing. Daniel lowered the rifle, breath heavy. Inside, the cabin glowed with firelight. He stepped in, soaked and mud-splattered, and found Maria's eyes on him. Fear lingered there, but something else too, a flicker of trust, fragile as a flame. "You're safe now," he said softly. Her lips parted, voice breaking. "Gracias, gracias." The girls huddled close and Daniel crouched beside them. He rested a hand on the eldest girl's shoulder, firm but gentle. "No one's gonna beat you again." The storm faded with dawn. Golden light spilled across wet earth, touching the cabin with quiet warmth. Smoke curled from the chimney. Inside, for small breaths rose in sleep, their mother curled among them at last unafraid. Daniel sat at the table, weary but alive, watching the light grow. For the first time in years he felt his home was more than walls and wood. It was shelter, promise, belonging. The West was cruel, but sometimes, through fire and storm, a man could stand against it. Sometimes, against all odds, broken lives could be pieced together again. And as the sun climbed, Daniel whispered to himself almost a vow, "They'll never be hurt here again." And that's the story, friends. A lonely cowboy who opened his door, and in doing so, found something worth guarding with his very life. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear a story even more powerful than this one. You'll feel it deep in your heart. Don't miss it. Until we meet again, may kindness always find its way to your doorstep.